Hello again and welcome to another Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to say a huge thank you to Rich from Polished Turd Miniature Painting, absolutely fantastic name, for sending in some awesome pictures of his classic Imperial Guard models. Really like everything that's on display here, Rich. You've done a fantastic service to the Guard. The old school Cadian command squad combined with that classic demolisher. The servo skull serving the tea. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant idea. I love all the ideas, and the paint scheme is just absolutely top notch. So thank you for sending these pictures in. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos, then please post them on my Facebook page, or you can do what Rich did and you can email them to me at mordianglorytv@gmail.com. Now don't worry if you can't remember all that, there will be a link to the Facebook page down in the description below, and there'll also be an email address, so don't worry if you're an ogre who hasn't had his bonehead surgery yet, you'll be able to find it down there. But without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So recently I've been putting out a few videos regarding my Steel Legion and my Scions, and I mentioned in passing in one of my videos that, well, you could always, pick the best of both and put your Scions in your Chimeras. And what was really interesting, this prompted several questions. In fact, I must have had almost a dozen questions from people saying, well, how can you put your Scions in Chimeras? I mean, how can you keep the regiment trait, or can you even do it? And so what I thought I'd do is I'd actually address that question, because it's actually something which has been going through my head, and I seriously think that if you're going to be running an armoured or mechanised infantry force going forward, you want to seriously consider binning off your regular infantry squads and instead taking Scions. And there's two ways of doing this, and the first way you could consider doing this is by putting the Scions in a separate detachment. So you can take a detachment of, you've got 3 detachments to play with, I should say. The standard 2,000 point competitive match play game, tournament rules, you'll have 3 detachments to pick from. And you can, you don't have to take all 3, but if you've got 3 detachments to pick from, what you can do is you can say, right, I'm going to take a regular detachment of a battalion of Astra Militarum, and I'll probably take a custom regiment trait. I'll start looking at double heavy flamer chimeras, and we'll start looking at gunnery experts and spotter details to give you some really potent mechanized forces there. But you may want for the infantry in those chimeras to actually be able to do something. You see, your regular infantry squads, they can go in chimeras, but they tend to jump out, cap an objective and then die. And you might want more than that from your infantry. And that's where you look at your second detachment and you look at taking a Scion regiment. Now, the reason why you would take these 2 detachments is it might cost you an additional 3 CP, and you may have to pay some tax as well, and we'll get to that in a moment. But the advantage of taking your Scions in another detachment, let's say a 2nd battalion for example, is it would allow you to not only get a regiment trait for your Astra Militarum vehicles, but it would allow you to get another regiment trait for your Scions. And there's sort of 3 regiments that stand out to me that would work really well for this tactic. Of course there are other regiments you can pick from, but these are the 3 that pop into my head. The first one being Lambdan Lions. Lambdan Lions gives you an extra AP across the board, and to be honest guys, it is the easiest to pilot, and it's just, I would describe it as a take-all-comers choice. Having an extra AP is never going to be a bad thing. When you're talking about AP -3 las guns, AP -4 plasma guns, really what the Lambdan Lions does is it just means that you're always going to be forcing your opponent onto that inevitable 4+ vulnerable save that you're going to encounter in the tournament scene, be it Deathwing Terminators or Death Guard, Death Shroud Terminators or whatever, or with the new Scutari popping around. Your basic lasgun guys, we're talking infantry squad lasguns, aren't going to do anything to those Scutari with the 1-up save, but your Lambdan Lions with their AP -3 lasguns are going to be forcing them back onto a 4-up, and will actually mean you'll kill some of them. So that's why Lambdan Lions is really good. And the way I would run that is I'd take lots of plasma guns. I would look at taking a Lambdan Lion Warlord Warlord trait. So obviously if you're taking a mechanized force, you're probably going to give up your main Warlord trait for a tank ace, and you'll probably pay another CP for another tank ace when you inevitably, when you're thinking about this list, you'll be taking Scions in the Chimeras, but you'll be supporting those with tank commanders and full payload manticores more than likely. But you can still get access to a Warlord trait for one of your Scion Tempesta Primes, because there's a stratagem called Progeny of Conflict, which is in the Greater Good. It's specific to the Scions, and it allows you to give a Warlord trait to one of your Scion characters. And the one I would go for is the Lambdan Lion one, Keys to the Armory, because what it means is it gives your Warlord a 6-inch bubble of reroll ones to hit. It's absolutely fantastic. So you combine that with Plasma on your Scion squads, you're having a great time. Now in terms of, because it means you can give reroll ones to the Scion squad to hit, and then you can give them another order on top of that, because you actually haven't ordered them yet. One is just an aura from your Warlord trait. You could then, on top of that Warlord trait, you could order those Scion squads to potentially Elimination Protocol Sanction, which is the Scion specific order, which gives you full rerolls to wound against all vehicles and monsters. Or if you're not facing vehicles and monsters, you could just go for bring it down and just have generic reroll ones to wound. It's pretty good. So the point is that Lambdan Lions, you get that great AP, it's take all comers, and the Warlord, the access, you can spend a CP, get access to Warlord trait that really boosts all your firepower. And on top of that, you could take your free relic, every army gets one, and you could take the Lambdan Lions one, and you're looking at a 5+ invulnerable save for all those Scions, and it's really good. You don't tend to have a great relic for guard these days. Most people just default to Curves Aquila, which is alright, and you could do that, but you could take something that's a bit better than Curves Aquila if you go down this Lambdan Lion route. Another regiment that you could consider, which I would argue is you probably wouldn't need to pay for the Progeny of Conflict that you could do. You could save yourself CP. Is the Capic Eagles. Now these guys naturally lend themselves to being mechanized infantry. When they disembark from a transport, any transport, it could be a Valkyrie, it could be a Chimera, it could be a Torx Prime, it doesn't matter. When they disembark from a transport, they get +1 to hit, and they don't suffer the penalty for moving and shooting with heavy weapons. And for Scions, that means that they can move and shoot with those hotshot volley guns with no issues. Now for me, when I'm looking at Capic Eagles, I want to take advantage of that regiment trait as much as possible, so I'm thinking hotshot volley guns. Hotshot volley guns are absolutely fantastic. They are only 5 points, so not only is this route potentially less CP intensive, it's also potentially just points less intensive. If you're taking 10-man squads of Scions, which you'll probably be doing, because you'll be taking a big battalion of them, you want big squads, because you're only going to have 6 troop choices to fill your Chimeras. Could go command squads, that is an option, but for me, when I'm thinking Capic Eagles in Chimeras, I'm thinking 10-man squads with 4 hotshot volley guns in each squad, cheeky plasma pistol on the sergeant, because it's free at the moment. That may change, but it is free at the moment. Yeah, you just jump out and you first rank fire, second rank fire, and every single guy in that squad is getting 4 shots. Some of them are hotshot volley guns, so they're strength 4. It's super powerful. And they're all hitting on 2s. So you're having a great time. Or you could just you could use them to take aim, so everyone, you're getting less shots, but the hotshot volley guns still get 4 shots each. And you're looking at, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s with just an unholy amount of AP -2 damage. So Capic Eagles lend themselves really well to it as well. And they're the 2 main ones. They are the 2 main ones. The last one that stands out to me as being potentially quite good in this regard, and I'm not going to lie, it is a bit of a curveball choice. But for me, I would be thinking of one of the Iotan regiments, so either the 43rd Iotan Dragons or the 9th Iotan Gorgons. The Iotan Dragons add 6-inch to their rapid fire weapons, which means if I was taking these guys, I wouldn't give them any upgrades. I'd keep them as 10 Scions, all with hotshot lasguns or whatever's on the sergeant, and then they've all got that rapid fire 24-inch range, which is really nice. And again, allows you to save points. That's the budget option, and it just means that you can jump out and have a 12-inch rapid fire range, which for Scions is nice. Or you'd consider going to Gorgons, where you wouldn't have the extra range, but you would have exploding sixes when shooting the nearest enemy unit. And with this regiment, again, I'd be looking, with both those regiments, I'd keep them bare bones, and I would be looking at first rank fire, second rank fire, sort of the go-to order there. So that's just to give you a quick summary. If you're going down this first option of Scions and Chimeras and you're going with a separate detachment, if If you're going Lambdan lines, you want to be doing plasma, you want to be doing warlord traits, you want to be doing orders. So basically all that plasma is getting some form of rerolls to hit and some form of rerolls to wound. If you're going Capic Eagles, you'll want to go for hotshot volley guns, and you'll probably be going for reroll 1s to hit, because you'll be hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, which is really, really fantastic. And for the other 2 regiments, they're the budget options, and you either want to give yourself that extra range, which means you can rapid fire really nicely, or you want to go for the exploding 6s. And again, both of those Iotan regiments, you'd go bare bones, and you'd go first rank fire, second rank fire. Those last 2 are a bit of a curveball, I'm not going to lie. And for me, out of all of those, my top pick would be the Capic Eagles, because they would bring a crazy amount of anti-infantry firepower. And that's really what you want from your Scions when you're running a mechanized regiment. Because you want your Chimeras to be armed with double heavy flamers. You want your Scions to be armed with loads of anti-infantry firepower. And their job is to get up into the enemy's face, flame them with the Chimera, jump out, dagger them with the hotshot volley guns, unleash this AP -2 firepower into the enemy, clear them off the objectives. And you want your big heavy hitters, your tank commanders, your full polar manticores, they're the ones that you're going to equip with your demolisher cannons, probably even consider multi-melter sponsons. You could go crazy all out on the anti-tank, and they're the ones that are going to be damaging the enemy's big boom things, and it's up to your Scions to win the infantry fight. Of course, if you go Lambdan Lions, they can take on anything, but how I see it is it's better specialised when you're doing this sort of mechanised thing. Now, however, I should say, that route of taking an extra detachment does have some disadvantages. So firstly, as we've sort of mentioned, it's going to cost you CP. You're going to have to take an additional detachment. That is going to cost you 3 command points. If you're going down the Progeny of Conflict route, that could cost you another command point. If you end up taking an extra red, that's another command point. And quickly, that's the thing with Scions, quickly if you start spending CP, you'll keep spending CP, because there's so many good things you can do with them in that way. Also, as mentioned, you're going to have to pay tax. You see, in order to take those Chimeras and the other detachment, you're going to need to take some tax units. Now, when selecting dedicated transports, it's very important to understand the rules around it. For each infantry keyword unit you take, you can take a dedicated transport. Now, that doesn't mean you have to take infantry squads. It's anything with the infantry keyword in that detachment. But if you're taking if you are taking those Chimeras, for example, and you're taking them in a battalion, for example, then you may end up finding that you're going to have to take sort of 3 infantry squads to fill the minimum requirements for that battalion. Or some conscripts to screen. You're going to have to take a minimum of 3 infantry squads to fulfill the requirements for that battalion. Now, you could start getting crazy and go down taking a couple of spearheads. There is some crazy things you can do, but it's just going to cause, again, more CP to be spent. So essentially, you can either not pay as much tax and go down having 3 detachments, 2 spearheads to get all the tank commanders and whatnot that you want, or you will have to start spending tax points on things like infantry squads. But the reason I mentioned that they don't need to be infantry squads is because if you go down something like the spearhead route, or you're also in the battalion route, you could take, for example, 3 mortar squads. They are the infantry keyword. They can sit behind line of sight, blocking terrain, having line of sight, ignoring weapons, even ones like mortars, which are just basically D6 bolter shots, is super important. I can tell you this from experience. When I went to my last event, not having any line of sight ignoring guys was really tough. Every game I was sort of crying out for even some mortars would have helped, just so I could just shell the enemy and not worry about it myself. So it's just something to be aware of. So you will have to take some form of tax. either, you could take a company commander. He's an infantry model. He'll get you access to a Chimera. My point is that if you go down this additional regiment trait route and where everyone gets a trait, you'll get more power from the Scions, but you'll be paying for it in other areas. So you'll be paying more CP and you'll be paying tax. And even if you look at three infantry squads and an officer and something here and something there, you're still going to be looking, you're looking at, I'd probably say, an average of about 250 points of potentially tax units. Now, you can get those tax units to do stuff, retrieve victorious data, engage on fronts, screening, there is stuff they can do. But at the end of the day, they are a tax. That's option number one. And obviously it's the more complicated option, so that's why I did it first. Tackle the hard one first. That's the more complicated option. There is another option, which is a bit of a crazy one, but bear with me, which is you don't worry about the Scion Regiment trait. Okay? You don't worry about it. And you might be thinking, what the hell is this guy on about? Okay, you can take Scions, you can take your Stormtroopers, you can take your Scions in your regular guard battalion. Imagine you want to save as much CP as possible and you don't want to pay any tax. You want to do this as efficiently as possible. Well, this is how you do it. You take your 3 tank commanders in your battalion. Great. You take your 2 full payload manticores. You take then it's like, okay, well, I've got all the best bits of my detachment there. Okay, you know what I'll do? For my troop choices, I'll just take Scions, and I won't worry about them having a regiment trait. I'll take gunnery experts, I'll take spot details, my Chimeras, my tank commanders, my manticores will benefit from that. And you know what? I'm just going to take Scions. 10-man squads of Scions. And every one of those 10-man squads that I take, or 5-man squads, whatever you want to do, but every one of those 10-man squads that you take, you can take a Chimera. You just put them in there. Now the disadvantage of this, of course, is that you will be lacking in terms of Tempesta Primes. You won't be able to get any other officers in there. If you want to do that, you're going to have to start looking at potentially looking at dropping a tank commander, or you start looking at a brigade. A brigade? What is this mad person on about? Okay, well, bear with me. Okay, you can take your 3 tank commanders. You've got a room for your Tempesta Prime HQ choices then. You're already taking 2 full payload manticores. I've already said that taking an additional what the heck am I trying to say, like mortar squad is absolutely fine. For fast attack choices, Sentinels, specifically Scout Sentinels, are fantastic for getting you a turn 1 engage on all fronts. Absolutely fantastic. And then it's like, okay, well now I just need to fill Chimeras and transports. That's all I need to fill. I'm having a great time. You'll have to potentially play around with some stuff in the elite section as well. But my point is that there's no tax units there. So there's 2 ways of doing it. You just take a battalion and you don't worry about orders for your Scions. And you're just taking these bricks of Scions. And the reason you're taking them is very simple. Scions are just better than infantry squads. It's as simple as that. You can unload a 10-man infantry squad, even with first rank fire, second rank fire, okay, against a unit of Terminators, against a unit of Skitarii, and you're not going to do very much. You're going to get 36 shots. You're going to hit with 18 of them. Let's say against you go with the new Skitarii, you're going to kill 9. You're going to wound 9 of them, and you'll kill 1.5. If you're lucky, you'll kill 1.5. We're talking the Lucius 2 1+8 guys. You do the same with your Scions. You're gonna get 18 shots. You're gonna hit with 12. You're gonna move with 6, and then you open minus 2. Now if they're on a wallet, that puts them onto a 3-up. You're gonna kill 2. So instead of killing 1, realistically killing 1 Skitarii, you're gonna kill 2 Skitarii. And then if you start taking the battalion and start taking Tempesta Primes and start getting orders out there, you're going to kill 4. And you're not taking any tax because those sentinels have a job. That additional mortar squad has a job. And it's all very doable. It's all easily fit into a brigade. So that's the other way you could do it. And that's something that often people forget. You don't need to take a regiment training Scions if you don't want to. It can often be significantly more points efficient to not do. Don't forget there is also, last thing to mention, there is the best of both worlds. You could take a Scion detachment and just give it Chimeras. Yes, you'll lose your regiment rate, but just give it Chimeras. So you take a battalion, 3 Tempesta Prime, 6 infantry, 6 Scion squads, and put them all in Chimeras. And then you take take 1 tank commander in that battalion. So you got 2 Tempesta Prime, sorry. And then you take a spearhead. And in that spearhead, you take your 2 other tank commanders, your 2 full payload manticores, and a mortar squad, something like that. There's options, is what I'm saying. There's options. And it's down to you as the player what route you want to go down. Do you want to spend more points and more CP to get more power for your punch? Or do you want to spend less points and CP on tax stuff, but your Scions not be as good, but even when they're not as good, they're still better than running bare bones infantry squads? It's just things to think about. That's how you can do it. I'm not saying whether it's necessarily the right thing to do or whatever. I'm just saying those are the options, and it certainly is not a bad thing to do. It definitely is something I personally will be experimenting with. Now bear in mind this is a bit of a theory craft video, but I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to start looking at the best way of doing this. And then we can report back. I can do battle reports with it. I can take it to events. And yeah, so again, this is kind of a fundamental question. I probably should have asked at the beginning. Why would you want to put Scions in Chimeras? Well, it's much cheaper than putting them in Torx Primes. Torx Primes are very good though. And that is something that we will be looking at in future videos. You know, Torx Prime spam. Is that a thing? Could be. But I want to test it out first. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.